What's up, War Room? Welcome back. Joe and Connor, fresh off doing about 30 minutes of Connor's mock draft talk. We got a lot of questions that pair very well with it here, mostly about the NFL draft, but also about some of the veterans. Before we were recording, we were talking about some of our mild stresses about the live show. Excited stress, though. But CR, how you doing? How you feeling?
Good. I like this format because it's good to just like I get all the ats. By the way, a little tip for everyone, and I'm not bothered by this, but just to let them know, you don't have to add us in the Q&A.
That's true.
The beauty,
true.
and I love that
Great
everyone
point.
does this. So I
Yeah.
do see every question usually, and I'm like, man, we'll have them stack up, and I'm like, I can't wait to answer these all in one clean sweep on War Room. In an open forum. But it makes me laugh. Like, the beauty of Discord is we made a Q&A channel. So the only thing that'll ever be in there is your questions. So we will make sure we never miss them. But I do love that everybody still adds all of us. It makes it fun.
Listen, they could be asking questions of other people. You never know. But we
Yes.
do always prioritize getting to these. So we're going to start with David. Do you think anyone who watched Tyler Warren against USC is fine to see him picked at 7? Was the rest of his film as good, or was the USC game an outlier? What do you think about the CR as someone who has recently mocked Tyler Warren to the Jets at number 7?
Well, the USC game, they ran this weird play. I think it was him that snaps the ball, and he runs up the seam and makes a leaping, like, above the rim touchdown catch. It's a wacky play. I'm pretty sure he catches it after snapping it. No, Warren, let's be real. There's just not a lot of college tight ends that have these 1,200 plus yard seasons. It's it's pretty unique territory. We've talked about Trey McBride a lot this week. It's really funny. It's very funny. But the reason why I bring that up is I always say this helps me with, like, when we do the fantasy show, I always tell people, I'm like, the reason why rookie tight end production typically is never high is because tight ends in college are not the focal point of their offense. It's insanely rare. Two guys that often were the focal point of their offense were Brock Bowers for 3 years at Georgia and Trey McBride, who at Colorado State had over 1,100 yards on 90 catches in 12 games. His final Colorado State. He was the offense. They just threw him the ball. Everything they did revolved around him. So they were built to be ready-made contributors because they were used to already doing that. That's Warren. Warren not only had those 1,200 plus receiving yards, but he threw a touchdown and he ran for 4. They were just like, and this is Penn State. It's not like when you watch these small programs and they're like, well, he's the best player we have, so we just have him do everything. It's one of those situations where, like, Warren's playing at Penn State. It just freaks everywhere on this team. But they were like, no, we got to make sure Tyler Warren is the do-it-all guy. So the USC game, obviously a lot of fun, but overall, that's what you see on Warren's tape. And even if you're like, hey, he didn't have his usual monster game, then he's blocking his ass off. That's the beauty of it. So the tape's phenomenal. Warren just had a tremendous season. And if you're wondering why he broke out that year, like, they were splitting targets with him and Theo Johnson of the Giants, which is kind of insane looking back on it now. But, that James Franklin does some questionable things.
All right, Hudson Jet, taking our Tetris to the next level here. Considering the steep learning curve for even the most talented rookie tackles, coupled with the uncertainty of ABT's future after this season, what do you think of drafting Membu at 7 and actually playing him at right guard with ABT at right tackle? This would solidify our O-line and provide us a strong OT3 and provide experience for our right tackle in the future without throwing him directly into the fire. A little forward thinking could be a nice change of pace for this team. I do want to also say with ABT, we've talked a lot about the sports science angle of it. We will have a bit on before the NFL draft with someone who is more qualified to speak to this, talking about the potential medical risks of playing him at right tackle. But back to the question, CR, what are your thoughts there?
So people probably heard you read this and thought it's totally insane. And while I would not do this, it's not insane at all, and I'll tell you why. Membu was a guard recruit coming out of high school. Usually, tackle recruits end up at guard at college, or they end up as college tackles and then NFL guards. You don't see a lot of human beings go the other way, where they were ranked as a guard coming out of high school and they develop into a college tackle. Membu it's weird. I remember you don't get a lot of players that are underlisted their height in college. When he was listed at 6'3" at Missouri, everybody was like, man, like you look at him, he's got, really thick legs and he's squatty kind of build. But I always thought his arms, I'm like, his arms are not short. And then he gets to the combine. It's like, wait a second, you're 6'4"? Like they cost you an inch on your. So a lot of people were looking at him and just thinking guard build all the way. And he's not the biggest tackle, or should I say longest tackle in the world, but he's 6'4" and a quarter. He's 332 pounds, which is why a lot of people probably think he's a guard because he carries so much mass. And then he goes and runs a 4.9 140, which is just out of this world. And he's got 33.5-inch arms, which is, for most teams is the threshold at tackle. Like if you're below that, they won't play you at tackle. So this idea is probably how you get the best out of the line this year. So with last year's regime, I would say, yeah, they probably could experiment with that. These guys have some time. If Membo's your right tackle of the future, you got to go through the ups and downs of the rookie right tackle. And honestly, too, you got to remember, if AVT has a good year at guard, that money is a lot different that you would pay him because AVT will be due a contract than you'd pay him as your franchise right tackle. You're looking at the guard market, because free agency is so screwed up these days, has gone up significantly. But man, it's not like the tackle market. I'm trying to pull this up right now and just kind of show, where we're at right now in the guard market. Like Landon Dickerson got a big deal. He averages $21 million a year. You look at left guard. If you look at the right guards, like Trey Smith got the franchise tag this year, so that doesn't really count. But Chris Lindstrom on the Falcons, he makes $20.5 million a year. You go to left tackle, or in this case, right. I'll go right tackle. Tristan Wirfs, $28.1 million. I mean, we're going to say the gap is going to be about a $7 to $10 million difference. That's Andre Sisco right there. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's a starter that you actually think could be above average for you. So that's another reason why I don't think it would happen.
All right, a little more of a process question here from T3 Our Bible. Question for Connor, potentially while breaking down the tape on Fields, Cisco, etc. What's your process? How do you go about looking at film for an individual player? Do you get it cut up? What are you looking for initially? Do you intentionally go in with any preconceived notions or approach, or with a clean slate? Any details along those lines would be awesome to hear, and looking forward to more breakdowns soon.
Well, number one, I'd be lying if I sat here and said I had no previous thoughts on it, because I do a fantasy show at NBC 5 days a week where it's like, especially the offensive guys, I know what they did all year because we break it down in the moment. So Fields, Cisco's different. I didn't watch Cisco for Jacksonville on film all year. I knew what he was as a prospect, really liked him, and I knew he had grown into a really nice value for Jacksonville, and then things went to hell this year. So that was one of those, like, are they really as bad individually with him as people are saying, or is this a team problem? So that was a lesser. Fields, we're breaking it down every week. And then when the Steelers benched him, it was a huge talking point in NFL and fantasy circles where you're like, should they have done this? Was it deserving? I mean, Russ is Russ. He was such a limited ceiling with Russ. I thought it was just nuts, and it ended exactly how we all thought it would with them. So you go in naturally knowing that they were frustrated with throws he left on the field, but you also knew that the dimension of him running can alter any drive. So you just watch him, and obviously a guy I knew a lot about in college and evaluated. It hasn't progressed as a passer like I hoped. But yeah, you go in. What I did with Fields was, the first thing I watched was the entire Raiders game, because that was the last game he started for them. I was like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back here, that they were like, we got to go to Russell Wilson? And it was jarring to me how little moments there were of, oh, that's why. Like when you and I watched Zach Wilson get benched 75 times, you could probably rip the plays off the top of your dome where you're like, they can't put him out there again. They cannot go another week with him out there. I did not have those moments watching Fields against the Raiders. Okay, you miss a throw, or you didn't play fast enough and you were late on throws, but it wasn't we cannot have that out there. So that you watch that game, cut-ups do help. Like when I watched Cisco's cut-ups of his turnovers the 2 previous years to see how he was used. Is it single high? Is it too high? What was he doing? And then watch Jacksonville's defense this year of like, okay, there's just no communication here. This is just a bad unit on the back end. They have injuries. So it's a little bit of everything. We're really spoiled in this era. My life has gotten a lot more efficient with I freelance for Pro Football Focus, so I have access to their software, and I could watch anything. Like if people wonder, like, how does one person get to, like, if I want to see Fields dropbacks on 3rd and 7+ where he rolls out right, like I could filter that out. And, like, no joke, I could literally filter that out. So cut-ups do help a lot, but at the very baseline, watching a full game at a breaking point is the most important thing.
Underdog Fantasy, best ball draft, pre-NFL draft, season ramping up soon. Our first one will be live before the end of March. Probably have 2 live before the end of March, just waiting for a couple things to be sorted out in a couple states, but we will be ramping them up soon. When you do sign up, of course, you make sure to use promo code Badlands for a deposit match. Also, CR, I think we'll be able to throw some pick'ems out there for higher lowers, not just with basketball, not just with hockey, but also with the NFL draft. So what are you looking forward to this time of year?
It's the best, man. The pick'ems are a lot of fun, especially you could package them different sports. We'll have at the same time. We'll get ready for NBA, NHL playoffs, hopefully some NFL draft slots as well. Just bundle them all together and hope for the best.
Underdog Fantasy, make sure you use promo code Badlands. All right, one from Andy. Are there any specific prospects in this draft that the Jets could take that would really have you scratching your head, questioning their thought process, whether it be a certain prospect in general or at a specific point in the draft? So I guess, like, let's just simplify this to 7. We
right,
talked
that's the easiest way.
A lot about basically 3 or 4 people potentially being this pick. We've talked about Graham a lot. We've talked about Warren a lot. We've talked about Membu a lot. A little bit we've talked about Tet, not as much recently. Who is a guy they could take at 7 where you're like, what the fuck just happened? Or like, what is going on here? I don't know if there's someone they could take in the second round where that's high enough for a reaction like that to be merited on anyone. But what is the one at 7 where you'd be like, oh my God?
The low-hanging fruit one is Mykel Williams, because naturally he is somebody, Georgia edge defender, but an unconventional edge defender. Like, with Mykel, at the combine, he came in at 6'5 and 1/8, 260. He looks even bigger when he plays. He probably came in a little slimmed down at the combine. He almost looks like he played at 270 to me. That's just a guy for me that it seems like the NFL scouting community is higher on than everybody else. And that's because he's got these long arms. He's strong. He's everything that you want an edge defender to look like. And it seems to be a really tough player. I know he dealt with an ankle this year and played through it. And Georgia, like, they have a lot of rules to their defense where it's you don't just get to pin your ears back and fly around and run up numbers. But my take is, what frustrates me with the NFL more often than not is the NFL does this thing where they look at these guys with these raw, like dripping with traits, and they think they have to take that guy in the top 10 when there's just really good football players that also have good traits sitting there to be taken, but they go with the guy that might have a higher ceiling but is so far away from the floor that the other guy has, while that guy still has a high ceiling. That was always my fear with Olu a little bit, is that, and I'm glad it didn't happen, but Olu had physical traits, but he also had, well, it did happen. J.C. Latham went over him, okay? This is a good callback. J.C. Latham was this big, hulking right tackle that can drive you 6 feet into the dirt, and his splash blocks are insane. Olu didn't have those run blocks on tape. He can get to his guy, hit the strike zone, like sustain it long enough, and he was so silky smooth as a pass protector. Latham's bad in pass pro was like, oh, our quarterback is going to get absolutely annihilated. And sure enough, and Bill Callahan, like Jets legend as a coach, the Callahans took J.C. Latham before Olu Fashanu went off the board. You know who was the better tackle as a rookie by a pretty good margin? Shocker, he was the way better tackle at college football.
Yep.
Like, so that's Michael would be this guy to me where I go, man, he's big, he's strong, he's got these long arms. But there's just better pass rushers in the draft that I know Michael will always be solid against the run. He might never be more than a 4-sack, 5-sack player. That's what's crazy to me. To be honest with you, and it's a different mold, but the Packers did this the year the Jets took Will McDonald. Yep. Lucas Van Ness was this big guy dripping with traits and had these flashes of power and size. Will McDonald is the all-time leader in Big 12 sacks with Von Miller. And you know who's been the better NFL pass rusher? Will McDonald.
Double-digit sacks last year.
So it just, and those are two good Jets examples. The Jets have had a lot of the other way around where it's like, oh, man. So, yeah, Michael Williams would be the guy to me where I'm like, I think he's going to be a fine NFL player. There's no reason in the world to take him with the 7th overall pick. And if he goes in the top 12 picks of the draft, I would not be surprised.